Hey friends, my name is Lisa Johnston Hancock, and today I'm going to show you how to draw a barn owl. And we'll be working from the image that you see on the computer screen behind me that I pulled from unsplash.com. I will put a list of the materials that you will be needing in the captions under this video, but I'm also about to show you everything that you're going to be working with today. So if you want to pause the video and go grab everything that you need that you can see in the list, you can do that, or you can wait and take a look at the materials I'm about to show you, and then you can pause the video and go get your materials then. However you want to do it, but you will need to get set up in just a minute, and we will get started on drawing our barn owl. For today's drawing, you really just need a pencil with an eraser. I have a 2B pencil, but you can use a regular drawing pencil or just a regular number 2 pencil. It does not have to be anything fancy. And then you need a sketchbook. This is one of my new favorite brands, and this is Stillman and Byrne. This one is the Alpha series. I just got it for Christmas and I'm really enjoying it because it holds mixed media, so I can not only do bird drawings, but I can add a little bit of watercolor to my illustrations if I want to. This is a brand new sketchbook that I just started, and you'll see today I was playing around with the anatomy of a barn owl, because today we're going to be drawing a barn owl. And we're not going to do all of this today. This is kind of complicated, but this is something new that I've started trying just so I can learn what is underneath all of those feathers that we see on the bird, because they're very fluffy, so it's hard to figure out, you know, the bones that are going on under there. They have some of the same bone structures similar to us. Of course, bird bones are much lighter, and that's how they're able to fly with their wings. And then of course this little area is very different from humans, but look, they have phalanges. That's what we have. So they have some similar bones to us. Then they have the, you know, the toe bones that actually have larger talons, especially a barn owl, so they can grab onto things, right? Because they're predator animals, so they eat things like what? Like mice, maybe tiny rabbits, maybe other birds at times. So they're a good owl to have around because people like them on farms, because they do eat the pests that farmers don't really want around, stealing their feed and stuff. Barn owls swallow their food whole, which is kind of interesting to know. They use pellets to build their nests. They are nocturnal, meaning that they hunt at night. They have uneven ears, which I thought was kind of cool to find out. They have excellent night vision. They can memorize sounds. They keep farm pests away, as we mentioned. They can survive in a large range of habitats. So they adapt well to changing environments, like maybe more homes coming in, more human interaction. They're able to adapt. Females are more vibrant in color, which I thought was interesting, because usually it's the male bird that is the most colorful and is trying to attract the female. Males perform flight displays to attract females, which I've never seen in real life, but that would be really cool to see. And all of this information I got from birdwatchingacademy.com. Bird Girl, she has some really fun YouTube videos if you want to check her out. All right, so this is my anatomy of a bird, just so I can see that up underneath, when you're looking at the barn owl, it looks like just this, actually it looks like just this part coming down, because all of this is covered by feathers. All of this is covered by feathers. And so what you see sticking out is this little part, which is kind of cool. All right, so just take a look at this. You don't have to do this. This is just something that I did for my own personal growth. That's up to you, because this has become my bird sketchbook. I am writing a book on bird songs and how some sounds can be confused with other songs. Like, for instance, a mustering of wood storks might sound like donkeys going hee-haw, hee-haw. You know, you could confuse it with something like that. So anyway, I'm working on that. So I'm thinking a lot about birds, and that's why I'm doing more research on birds. The sound that a barn owl makes is more like a screechy sound. I'm not going to imitate it, but you can look it up. It's kind of funny. All right, so we will go to a clean page now that we know a little bit about the anatomy of the barn owl. And we're going to be working from this photo right here. We're going to be doing a square format. So if you have a sketchbook that's not square on one side, you can just draw your little frame like this, and then it gives you some parameters to work within, so that's okay. All right, so we have a square format that we are working with. Let me make this a little better. I didn't do that. I'm gonna widen this just a smidge. There we go. All right, so what I like to do is break down into shapes the subject that I'm going to draw. So let's look at the first shape. So in this image, we're automatically drawn to the head, but we want to make sure that we have enough space here. So I'm just going to lightly put the head somewhere in there so that I make sure that I have enough space. So my picture that I'm working from is square, and it's similar to my format. So I have the head somewhere in here. I know that the feet are going to come out to there. I know that the top of the wing is going to be somewhere in here. And then the bottom of the wing comes all the way down to here. So I put these little tick marks where I know that the parameters of the bird's going to go. So you have the circle for the head here. Then we have like a big oval for the body somewhere in there. And then we know the feet are going to come off like this and in there, somewhere in there. And then this other foot is going to come off here. So you kind of have to ask yourself questions the whole time. So we got this big oval for the body, and I'm gonna fix it. Don't worry. That's the biggest thing about sketching is, you see, I do not have perfect lines. I have lots of sketchy marks, and I'm just kind of doing what we call gestures so that I can figure out where my subject's gonna go. So you don't have to worry about getting each mark perfect at this stage. This is a very early stage. So then the wing here comes up like this. Again, I'm going to go to this mark right here. That's basically a little triangle that comes down this way. The feather anatomy is harder. So I would say this is what we're going to do here. We're just going to outline the whole of the feathers, and then we're going to go back and make individual feathers later. So you just want to look at it broken down into shapes. So here we have the triangle shape. And then coming from the head, we have the wing shape that is going to go down to this line, right? And then it's going to come back and look at where it hits on the body, somewhere in here. So I'm always looking back and forth, looking at my photo, looking at my paper, looking at my photo, looking at my paper. I'm always going back and forth. All right. The tail, it's in front of this wing. And again, it's going to kind of hit that line. Then it comes up this way. It tucks under that other wing. So we're going to have to bring this down a little more. And that's kind of like a fan shape like this. All right, so there's one little trick. Now that we have this before we do the face, let's just, and then I'm going to show you a trick for the face. And let's come in here a little more. So now that I have my gesture lines, I can come in and start to refine my shape. So I'm gonna come underneath like this. And I'm gonna come under here and start to refine my shape a little more. Gonna come up into the feet. Feet are probably the hardest. We will do more details to the feet lastly. So kind of just block those in like this with little gestures, and then we'll come back and do the feet, because this one's flying. This is a really active pose, and I keep looking back and forth, back and forth. See, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing back and forth to make sure, because this feather comes out a little bit further than the head. If you took your pencil and you went up to the photo, you would see that this wing comes out a little bit past the head. When we get ready to block that in, it's gonna look something like this, like that. All right, so here's still the beginning phases. I'm just lightly putting in where that part of the wing is, and then the feathers that come back like this. And then we got this part of the wing here. Make sure that's correct. And then we got this is gonna come down here. Okay, here's a trick to doing faces. If you're not familiar with drawing faces, this is a great one to practice with, because the bird is looking directly out at us. So what we're gonna do is we're going to draw a line down the middle like that. And then we're gonna draw a line about where its eyes are. They're not directly in the middle. They are a little bit higher. And then we got this little heart shape here, so don't forget this. That's kind of what they're known for. All right, we got about where the eyes are gonna go. Then you can put another mark about where you think the top of the beak might go. Then you can put another mark about where you think the bottom of the beak might go. And then you just start to build the face from this little grid that we have here. So we've got what? Circles for the eyes, which are kind of smack in the center. And another circle for the eyes. And faces are symmetrical. So whatever you do on one side, it's got to go on the other side. And the barn owl faces are so beautiful. I'm not committing to either shape. I keep working on it. I'm not committing it because I think I actually might have made the eyes a little too big. So don't press down hard. Do not commit to any shape, because you can always change it. All right, so we'll go over this, and then we'll come down to where we said the bottom of the beak will go. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we'll go over the eye, and we'll come down to where the bottom of the beak will go. Then we'll kind of make where top of the beak will go. And you can see the feathers come down over the beak. You can do that if you want. If I was gonna do that, I'd probably do something like this. If I was gonna make it look more realistic, I might do something like that. We can fix that later. Because we do have this part. So this is where the feathers come together on their face. Because when we looked at the anatomy, we saw there's a piece right here that goes more inward, and it helps the owl see better. So we want to make sure that we have, these feathers that are coming up this way to show that that's that part of the anatomy, right? And then these come down like this. All right, so we're starting to work on our shape a little more. All right. Bring this down a little. Okay, so then you see you can start to add little details, and you can start to work on your shape more. So we got these little feathers. This one, this is probably a female, I would think, because she's pretty colorful. And we know from doing a little bit of research about barn owls, females are what? A little bit more colorful. Put this here and that way. This heart shape, again, this heart shape is what makes it a barn owl, so make sure that you have that. I see this needs to come down here a little more. That's what I said. That's why I said don't commit to anything until you know you've decided that it's finished. You can commit to it. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of shading to the eyeball, and don't press down super hard yet, because you can go in and add a highlight. Probably should have added a little bit of highlight there. So what you can do is circle it lightly and then go around. So what is the highlight? The highlight is where light hits the eyeball, and eyeballs are kind of glassy. So when light hits it, it's gonna look like that. It's gonna have a little bit of a reflection. So those are what those highlights look like. We can add more shading later. Let's work on the shape of the wings a little bit. So wings are probably the hardest part of drawing a bird. So just be a little bit patient. I'm gonna start with the top of this section. And this little wave part that folds in, because this top wing is coming over, right? It's foreshortened because it's coming more towards us. So it's going to be coming up like this. And then you can do the little dark, you know, there's dark, beautiful dark variations on their feathers. So if you want to just lightly put this in and wave so you know where they are, you can do that. But the first feather comes down like this, and then look at what it lines up with. So it goes right under the eye a little bit. So we're gonna have something like that. And then the next one will come, oops, it's up here too. Then the next one is going to come down a little bit. But you want to make it in line with your shape that you did here. So the next one might go like here. And then the next one, and they get a little bit closer together as they go out. So I think I need to fix this slightly and then fix that. There we go. Because they start to get a little bit closer. And that's why I say don't commit to a mark. Keep it light, because you might want to change something. And if you press down too hard, then when you go to try to change it, you won't be able to. And this is what a sketchbook is for, to learn, to figure out shapes. Can't really see what's in there, so I'll just kind of leave it like that for now. All right, let's do the same thing down here. So the first one, we kind of started that, it goes off that way. The next one's gonna go off like that. And then what's helpful is to kind of go like, you know, lightly put it in like this. And I'm always looking back at the drawing. I'm always looking at the drawing, because the wings overlap and overlap. And I'm doing a sketch. I'm trying to study what this bird looks like. So I'm not trying to get it exactly perfect like the photograph. I just want it to look like the feathers are moving in the correct direction. And I got my little sketch of a barn owl. That's what I want. Some of them are overlapping, I see. Some of them are bigger than others. So you have to work with that. But because I have already put my lines here a little bit, I kind of know where I'm going. All right, So remember how we did that? We did like the outline first, and then we made our feathers from the little outline that we did. Okay, scoop that up. There we go. Now you can see the bottom and everything. Okay, and then for the tail, we'll do the same thing, only I see bigger feathers, and then the tail, when they're doing different moves, like when they're doing the dances for each other, like the male's trying to press the female, the tail might fan out. Here it's kind of squished in a little bit, so it's overlapping. So you're gonna have one like this, and then you might have one behind like this, and they don't have to be perfect. I'm all about not being perfect. So if you are a bird expert and you're looking at my drawing and you're saying you got something out of place, well, I'm gonna be okay with that. But that's why I'm learning more about birds too, because I'm not an ornithologist. I love birds. I'm learning more. I just was gifted by my sister-in-law. I was gifted the Amy Ton book, The Backyard Bird Chronicles. I don't know if anybody got that book. It's really good. All right, so the toes, you just have to look. It's hard to explain toes, but toes are probably the hardest part. And if you wanted to leave them just kind of blocked in like I had, then you could do that. You know, that would be okay too. All right, I see that the legs actually come this far, so I gotta bring that in. And then we can start to add a little bit of shadows. That's another way to make it look more realistic. So once you get to this point, it's cool to leave it like this. I think it looks great because I like to see the sketchy marks. But if that bugs you, then you can always erase the lines that you don't need. And so now we're gonna add just a little bit of value. So what is value? Value is when something goes from light to dark in sketches or paintings. So how would you do value? Well, you have, say, one value is the white of the paper. Your second value, you're gonna use the side of your pencil to get something like that. Then if you wanted it to get a little bit darker, how would you do that? You press down a little bit harder. Then if you want to get it even darker, you press down and then maybe you go the opposite direction. And then finally for your darkest dark, which the darkest dark on this one might be the eyes, the claws, and some of the spots on the wings. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 values. I think we could get that in here. If I was gonna make the eyes a little bit darker, I might just press down a little bit harder and see how it just makes it pop a little bit. If you make it a little bit darker, underline, outline, make it a little bit darker. If you want to make the beak pop some, you can lightly, maybe like this value underneath the beak to make it pop. There's a little bit of texture and pattern on the top part, so I'm gonna make that with the lighter value. Come up here. She's white on the belly, but there are shadows, so you can put a little bit of shading underneath, and that'll make it look more 3D. And follow the direction of the subject. See how I'm shading this way? And then I'm gonna go this way, but then the same direction. Under here. So I see a little bit of shading on the tail even, so I'm gonna put some there. And in between the feet here, I see that I did the wing wrong. So this is why I say don't commit. So I'm gonna bring this up a little more. And then I'm going to bring these down. And these down. Sometimes that happens once you start doing shading and you see where things line up, and then you have to fix things, and that's okay. That's a little bit better. And I see a little shading in here, but not as, oops, let's erase that line that we don't need. There we go. Okay, see a little bit behind this foot on the tail. That's a shadow from the wing, I think. And then shadow here. And these are really beautiful birds, aren't they? They're so beautiful. And then there's a little bit of a shadow here, but it's got to be lighter than what you did on the belly. So if when we put this in, it gets too dark, then I'm going to go back and darken up areas in the belly like this. There's a little gnat flying around right now. It looks so realistic that the gnat thinks that it's a real bird. Just kidding. Now I'm just putting in whatever little details I want to add. I see some shading up here. It helps to squint your eyes a little bit, and then where you need to add value might pop out. A lighter value here. Just little hints of value. The wing at the top is a little bit darker and catching shade compared to the wing at the bottom. So I'm going to add a little value to that, and then it looked darker here. Let's work on these shapes a little. Okay, one key thing we're missing is the pretty speckles that the owl has. I remember when we did these lines, they're kind of swooshy waves. So I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna do it exact, but I'm just gonna go along and put in some of the little specks that the owl has on the wings. And I'll go this way. And now I'm just adding any last little details that we might need. Oops, I'm gonna bring that up a little more. And if you lost any of your light areas that you wanted, you can always take your eraser and lightly erase a little bit. I'm not really a fan of smudging graphite with my fingers. I know people do that, but to me it just looks dirty. So instead of smudging to move it around, just fill in the tooth of the paper. So like just put your lines a little bit closer together. You have to work a little bit harder, but I promise in the end it looks better. Looks cleaner. Looks like you took a little more time to shade. And you did. All right, you can do any last little things. If you want to darken the talons a little, you can do that. All right. All right, thank you for drawing with me. This is a lot of fun. I go that way for a little bit of variety. Gonna put the last few little dots here, just so that it looks like the signature barn owl. And maybe a couple little ones in here. All right. Oops, you can erase any lines that you don't want or need. But again, I kind of like the sketchy lines, especially when it's in your sketchbook. All right, thank you so much for drawing with me. Hope you learned a little more about barn owls. Maybe got you a little more excited about birds. And I'll see you next time we are drawing in our sketchbook. Bye, friends.